Good day, learners! Maayo na adlaw. This video will guide you in your statistics and probability lessons. The focus of this video is about identifying appropriate test statistic involving the population mean. Disclaimer: this video is for educational purposes only. This shall serve as support learning material to maximize or improve learners' performance in statistics and probability. No copyright infringement is intended. Borrowed materials, music, pictures, brand names, trademarks, etc. included in this video are owned by the respective copyright holders. The author does not represent nor claim ownership over them. Let's have the learning competency at the end, or as you watch this video. The learner identifies the appropriate form of the test statistic when the population variance is assumed to be known, the population variance is assumed to be unknown, the central limit theorem is to be used. So at the end of the video, you will be able to identify the appropriate form of the test statistic. To better understand test statistic, let's have its definition. Test statistic is a random variable that is calculated from a sample data and used in a hypothesis test. So it's very clear that it is a random variable and it is used in a hypothesis test. You can use test statistic to determine whether to reject or accept the null hypothesis. The test statistic compares your data with what is expected under the null hypothesis. So it is being compared to what is being expected under the null hypothesis. To, to have a clear understanding, let's have the definition of terms. A population includes all the elements from a set of data. So it is very clear that when we talk about a population, it is or it includes all the elements from set of data. And a sample consists of one or more observation drawn from the population. So it is also clear that a sample is from a or drawn from a population. Then sample mean or the X bar is the mean of sample values collected, while the population mean is the mean of all values in the population. Then population standard deviation or the sigma is a parameter which is measure of variability with fixed value calculated from every individual in the population. Then sample standard deviation is a statistic, which means that this measure of variability is calculated from only some of individuals in the population. So from a sample. Population variance or sigma squared in the same sense indicates how the population data points are spread out. It is the average of the distances from each data point in the population to the mean squared. So these are the terms that you need to be familiar with so that you will be able to identify appropriate test statistic. First test statistic that you should know is z-test. Ano nga ba ang z-test? Z-test, the sample is assumed to be normally distributed. A z-score is calculated with population parameters such as population mean, population standard deviation. It is used to validate a hypothesis that the sample drawn belongs to the same population. When the variance is known and either distribution is normal or sample size is large, use z-test statistics. So you will be using z-test if normal and sample size is large. So first test is the z-test. Later, it will be further discussed kung kailan mo gagamitin yung z-test. Sunod na test statistic is t-test. Like a z-test, a test also assumes a normal distribution of the sample. A t-test is used when the population variance or standard deviation are not known. So it is clear, population variance or standard deviation are not known. When the variance is unknown and the sample size is less than 30, use t-test or t-test statistic, assuming that the population is normal or approximately normal. Yan po ang Z and t-test. So when population variance is known, so let's have this table to better understand kung ano ang gagamitin, kung z-test ba or t-test. Population is normally distributed. Number of sample is greater than or equal to 30. Population standard deviation is known. Ang gagamitin po natin, z-test. Ito po, z-test. While when the population variance is unknown, population is normal or nearly normally distributed, and is less than 30, sample standard deviation is known, population standard deviation is unknown, then use t-test. And central limit theorem, population may not be normally distributed, number of samples is greater than or equal to 30 or considered sufficiently large, variance is known and unknown, use z-test by replacing population standard deviation by sample standard deviation in the formula. So it is very clear when to use z-test and when to use t-test. To make a clearer view of identifying the appropriate test statistic, let us be guided with this diagram. When the value of the sample size n is greater than or equal to 30 and the sigma or the standard deviation is known, use z-test. When the number of samples is greater than or equal to 30 and standard deviation is not known, use z-test. While when the sample is less than 30 and the standard deviation is known, use z-test. And when the number of samples is less than 30 but the standard deviation is not known or unknown, you will use t-test. So it is very clear when to use t-test and when to use z-test. Let's have the illustrative example. A manufacturer claimed that the average life of batteries used in their electronic games is 150 hours. It is known that the standard deviation of this type of battery is 20 hours. A consumer wished to test the manufacturer's claim and accordingly tested 100 electronic games using the battery. It was found out that the mean is equal to 144. Here, the sample size n is 100 and it is bigger than 30 or it is greater than 30, extremely large. And the population deviation is 20 hours is known. So the standard deviation is known. The number of sample is uh, greater than 30. Then the appropriate test statistic to be used is z-test. Z-test ang gagamitin mo kasi bigger ang sample or greater than 30 and then ang standard deviation niya is known kaya ang gagamitin z-test. That's all for this video. I hope you are now guided what test statistic is appropriate to use, when to use z-test, when to use t-test, and if it is not clear to you yet, you can go back with the diagram presented. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you have learned something. If you have queries on this topic, please ask me personally during our classroom interaction or message me through my messenger account. Keep learning. This is Sir Ronel.